one of the past presidents of the United States said something along the lines about terrorism, that if terrorism ever comes to this country, it'll be in the guise of a foreign enemy. And this is very interesting. It explains why there's this, and you've heard it so much, where there's this attempt to always make Islam connect to something negative, right? You hear it, Muslim terrorists put together in the same sentence so much, but you don't hear white terrorist. You don't even, like, it's almost that if people that doesn't even register that is such a thing. In right here in Colorado, a Senegalese family, their house was burnt down and several people died in the house. This is because it was a hate crime. You know, but a lot of times, even the hate crimes, they're not looking at it as a type of domestic terrorism. The words are not even being used, to define these things. And there's only specifically making this association with Islam. It creates a negative connotation in the mind of people on one hand, but on another level, it does something else. What is that? And that other part is very important, and to what that president said, the guise of a foreign enemy, the foreign part. See, as long as Islam can be seen as a bad thing and something foreign that has no connection to America, then that is something that for Americans in this society, it's easy to accept as an enemy. It's the foreign enemy. Sometimes people, I've been on some social media spaces where somebody who seems to be a proponent of white supremacy will say things like, to me, like, go back to your country. They see I'm a Muslim name, or they might see my picture somewhere on social media where I'm wearing an imama, and they might say something like this. And I find it interesting. I'm from right here. My African ancestors were slaving away building this country. I have Native American ancestors that were right here in this country, from this land. And so I find it interesting, but there's a perception, a turban or this dress, this is foreign. This is not American. This is not part of this culture, right? This is a perception that society always aims to reinforce. So many of the movies, if there's a bad guy, they have to have an accent, right? Because bad guys have to be from somewhere else. They have to, it plays to that idea of America the Great, the patriotism, right? The flag, all of the patriotism, all of these things, quote unquote patriotism. And a lot of people eat this up because they think and they have no concept about what's outside in the rest of the world. They haven't seen, been to, experience, or understand. Whatever they heard on the news, that's enough for them. That's all. That's it. So this this foreign othering of Islam is actually a tactic to keep this away as a foreign thing that doesn't have any place in this society. Where the views of many Americans is that Islam could never have a place. There's so many politicians, so many. I wrote a paper about the impact that 9/11 had on Muslims in America. That what changed for them, the difficult experiences that many people had, especially those visibly Muslim or masjids, hate crimes that occurred, things like that. I was writing a paper about this, and there were statements in my research that I found that, mayor of New York of the time and other places, so many negative statements about Islam. so many politicians and things like that making negative statements about Islam and making sure that the way that it's explained is the foreign enemy, something that came from somewhere else. It can't have any connection here. So this is where, in the idea of we truly want to understand how Islam will spread, or it spread, is that Islam inherently has a social context that's adaptable and relevant to every culture and time. This is very important to understand. See, the reason why Allah sends Islam as the final religion that's supposed to last till the end of time is because it will always be relevant to whatever the society needs, the concerns of the time, and the of the era, the region, wherever that is. Islam will be relevant, meaning to Europe, to Africa, to any parts of Asia, South America, and to right here in the United States, and right now in 2020. And so this is the fear. This is the true fear. Why those who despise Islam want to always make a connection to an othering, to a foreign entity, foreign enemy. The reason why is because if Islam becomes seen as a part of the fabric of this society, then no one is afraid of Islam. People willingly will come to Islam, right? There was an article on Yahoo. I want to say this was around 2006, maybe 2008. But basically, it was talking about the how there are certain quote unquote religions which are fastest growing in America. Islam is always going to be at the top, atop the list, or at the top of this list. And in addition to it, there were other ones, namely Buddhism and witchcraft. And what people were seeking in witchcraft and Buddhism, and also, Sufism was highlighted, but what people were really looking for is spirituality, like what this society is lacking, right? A society that's so materialistic, so capitalist, so much consumerism, right? A society like this, separation of church and state, we talked about that. A society like that leaves people empty. What are they? They're yearning for something. They're yearning for, I know people who heard Quran and just started weeping. Like, I never heard words like this. I know people who have heard dua and wanted to become Muslim. They never heard these beautiful words of the Ahlul Bayt. Sister just talked about the beautiful du'as of Saif al-Sajjadiyah. I know people who that reformed their lives, that they got lost in the sauce, so to speak, that they were trying to, a Muslim trying to recover their spirituality, that Saif al-Sajjadiyah, Imam Sajjad guided them back. I know people with Dua Kumail trembles their heart. Well, this is not something that you get in corporate America, in this capitalist system. And so there is a dire thirst for Islam. But the tactic of the enemies of Islam is to make Islam seem like it's something foreign, something strange, something unrelatable. Despite that innate desire that people have. This thirst if they could just understand, if they could just relate, if it was just, explained to them how much that would change the nature of how things are done, how things are seen. Just think about if every single center in America, that if for the past, in the, for let's say that a lot of Shia centers have been around for 30 years, 40 years or so. Let's say that all of these establishments were sharing the message of the Ahl al-Bayt with others and not hoarding it, meaning making it such that it was welcoming to everyone in the neighborhood, in society. You can walk into any church you like right now. When a church is open, if someone likes to come and sit, and there's no problem. Masjids, are they welcoming this way? Can someone sit? Can they grasp? Can they comprehend? Can they take from it? Would you feel comfortable just saying, hey, you know what? We're having a program tonight. I'm inviting my neighbor, my coworker, just stop by. Are they able to truly benefit from what's happening, why it's happening, and everything? I remember there was a brother who he became, he's a professor actually, and he was talking about his experience. He was in the military, and I believe in Iraq, and eventually he became Muslim, and he was talking about his experience as a Shia Muslim. He doesn't know a lot about Muharram and this culture of Azah and mourning. First time, friend, oh, come on, let's go to the masjid. Okay. Alhamdulillah, he comes to the masjid. He said the program was nice, people were nice, food, whatever, Quran and everything. I listened to the speech was in English. He said, and then, he's thinking that, okay, well, things must be wrapping up. He said, all the lights went out. He didn't know if the power went out or what happened, right? Next thing you know, he heard someone yelling loud. He heard someone saying, Allahu Akbar. He heard someone saying, Ya Husayn. He heard beating and hitting, and he was just out of his element in terms of comprehending. Right? And there wasn't explanation, there wasn't context added so that he could kind of ease into understanding, where does mourning come from? What happened? Why were people beating their chest? And this part, in that place, at least, it went to, it was in whatever language it was in English, so that added another layer of, misunderstanding. I think we underestimate how powerful the message of Imam Husayn is, and even the culture of Azah, and how that could impact people in a positive way. If the opportunity is there, if it's given, if it's supported, that allow people to be able to see that connection. When I was writing that same paper about 9/11, I wanted to start from a beginning of adding a context of Islam in America. There is evidence that some of the Native American people were Muslim and had Muslim names. There is evidence that Moorish people came to came to what is now known as the United States many years before European colonizers, and some of them were Muslim. There are treaties and agreements with names of people who are Muslim. There is presence of artifacts with Arabic writing on it even. It's a history of Islam in America will help people to understand that this is not a foreign thing. There is a presence here. During the transatlantic slave trade, so many African people were killed and murdered or died at sea. Many of them who did make it here were Muslim. There's accounts about different people who they were Muslim and brought here. I have a book that I was reading about, one of these slaves, or people, not should call them slaves, who were enslaved and brought here. And he wrote in Arabic, because that was his tongue, different things. He tried to maintain his Islamic heritage. And the book is very interesting. And it talks about, his struggle to try to get free, his struggle to he wanted to go back to his country, and what all that looked like. There's several stories. There was a noble, there's one account, I believe it's called A Prince Among Slaves or something, a title to this effect, or someone, he was a noble person, or he had a position of authority and he ended up becoming a slave. There were people, these people were Muslim in both of these instances. One of them, his name was Abdul Rahman. And these people who are Muslim came here, and the culture and reality of Islam means it existed here during a time of slavery in America. Some of what they knew, maybe they taught to others, though some of it was forced out of them, not being able to practice, being forced in some cases to accept a white Jesus as a way and means to subjugate them. But my point is that this Islam was existing in this era as well. And take it even a step forward to the first mosque, I believe, was it South Dakota, where the first mosque was built? That this presence of Islam in America is not something foreign. And we have to reject this idea that it's something that is just imported. No, there is a history of Islam right here in America. The Nation of Islam even is important. There was there's a brother, he does like these kind of short videos on YouTube. I don't remember his name, but he's Arab. And he talks about his struggle growing up in terms of identifying with Islam, because he felt himself being pulled in these different ways. On one hand, he's from, I believe Iraq or Lebanon, whatever country that his parents were from or he was born in. His background was, this Middle Eastern culture. On the other hand, he was a Muslim and he had a identity as a Muslim. On the other hand, he's growing up in America. He has this other identity as an American, and he felt sometimes these were at odds. These identities were not getting along. Was his struggle to maintain, and we see a lot of youth go through these struggles. How do I maintain my, what is my identity? Or if I want to be Muslim, then I can't be too American. Or if I'm American, if I speak English, then I can't have anything to do with my Middle Eastern or back home culture. And struggle with these things, or African culture, whatever that identity is. But there's a place where these things fit together. And that is when Islam is at the helm, because Islam is universal. It is the identity which everything can connect to, because you can be Muslim and be from anywhere in the world. You can be from Muslim and speak any language in the world. And if Islam becomes the focal identity, everything else fits into its proper place. But if my focal identity, my primary identity becomes American, then I'm in debt to whatever, I have to appease the norms of society, which may be completely contrary to my religious identity. There becomes a conflict. If my primary identity is my back home identity, there's no guarantee that everything that is from my back home identity is in line with Islam. That becomes a point of contradiction and conflict. And there becomes this internal conflict we see so many young people, especially, not just young people, other people are struggling with. Islam becomes a center point which everything can then hover around and connect to. We have to choose Islam all over again as our belief system, as our basis, as our foundation. I want you to think about this. In Karbala, the people who were this kind of like Armageddon of good and evil, this battle, this epic event that takes place where there are people who are trying to subjugate the message of God, who are going to murder the grandson of the Prophet just a few decades after the Prophet leaves this world. And there are the heavenly companions who are on the other side, striving to save humanity and give salvation through saving Islam. It gives us why we are here today, what we have today. But all of these people call themselves Muslim. I want you to think about that. Those people who fought against Imam Husayn called themselves Muslims. They didn't say we are Yazidis, we are non-Muslims, we are infidels, we are they called themselves Muslim. They prayed salat. Of what value, but they considered themselves Muslim. So on this battlefield, there were people who claimed to be Muslim and people who were Muslim. Do you understand? We have to choose to be Muslim. It is a choice. The reality is that when we are living in these circumstances, in this country, we must choose our Islamic identity. We must choose to have Islam as our primary identity. It is a choice. Just like the companions of Imam Husayn chose to be with him. And one of those people who had to make a choice was Hur. And he made the choice to be Hur, to be free. Hur saw himself initially as I'm just somebody just doing my job. I don't want to get mixed in with the politics. I don't want to really have to take a side. I just want to kind of do my job. When he stops Imam Husayn initially and ends up taking and escorting him to what would become his final resting place of Karbala, the land of Karb and Bala, the land of sorrow and grief. Hur, on the day of Ashura, he's sitting in the tent and he is at war with himself. Omar ibn Sa'ad, this accursed general, said, "What's wrong with you? You know, we got all the troops. We have everything to win this battle. Why you look like you're so at war with yourself?" And by this point, Horus had to make that choice for himself. He said, "I find myself between Jannah and Jahannam. I find myself between the gardens of paradise and the depths of hell. Between these two, a choice. Such a thin line." And then he says to Umar ibn Sa'd, "Wallah, I will choose paradise. I'm going to choose my Lord." And this is when he leaves the camp of the enemies. It says in some accounts that he took off his boots and hung them around his neck as a sign of coming in peace and remorse. Or that he walked with his sword face downward to signify a sign of coming in peace and not to fight. He made a choice to become Hazrat Hor, to become this noble Hor, someone who is revered as Shaheed, as the martyr of Karbala, someone who is remembered every year, someone who is talked about, who is immortalized in history because of his choice. See, he could have chose to I just want to have, my position in government. I just want to get by. He chose Islam. That is the choice that each and every one of us have to make. He goes to the battlefield after getting permission from Imam al-Husayn. Who comes to him, "Is there forgiveness for someone like me? Someone with this checkered past, with all of this wrong, someone who has put you in this predicament. Is there a way that I can fix things now?" And we live our life making wrong choices and mistakes, and we get those forks in the road and opportunities to make amends. It is a choice that we must choose to make. And he goes to the battlefield, he fights courageously and becomes a shaheed. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. سيعلمون الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون.
So when I see. Okay. There we go. Alhamdulillah.
So Maulana, I think you need to unpin yours. Emerald, you may have to pin your video. If you right click on yourself, you would be able to see how to pin your video, because if you pin it, then everyone will see it.
Okay. All right. I believe I am now pinned. Assalamu alaikum to everybody. My name is Imran Majid. I live in West Philadelphia, as I previously mentioned. The Sheikh previously mentioned Abbas, and this poem is dedicated to Fadl ibn Abbas. I wrote this a year ago, last Muharram, and it's called Ode to Abbas. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Wearing clothes of his father, known as a great martyr, he killed many enemy soldiers. He is Abbas, the moon of the Hashemites, and like Asadullah, the lion of God, he is courageous in all lands and ages, not afraid. Alamdar, the standard bearer, the wearer of devotion, goes to the Euphrates to get oceans for the children in Husayn's camp. Saqina, pained by emotion and attached to Abbas, her only hope for getting water. Abbas cannot stand, cannot see Saqina thirsty and crying violently. Abbas enters the battlefield on Uqab with only a spear, armed with Saqina's tears and a bag of water clutched in his hands. He makes it to the river, filling the bag with water, not quivering at the quivers of the enemy. Abbas's loyalty so great, he drinks no water. He cannot bear the thought of Saqina crying and thirsty. Abbas conquers the river, conquers himself, cusping the Euphrates in his mighty hands, and he still does not drink. After gathering the water, Abbas rides Uqab back towards the camp. On his way back, struck from behind, severing one of his arms, struck from behind again, severing his other arm. Abbas continues carrying the water bag in his mouth. Yazid's soldiers start shooting arrows at him. One arrow hits his bag and pani gushes out of it. One arrow hits his eye and rokto gushes out of it. One of Yazid's men hits Abbas with a mace, falling off his horse, lacking arms. Abbas falls with grace before he lets the bag fall. But Al-Abbas ibn Ali, the standard bearer, did not fall. Al-Abbas ibn Ali, the king of loyalty, did not fall. The universe rings the father of virtue. Open the door to Husayn. Open the door to fulfilling needs. The most superior martyr, the strength of Husayn succeeded. In the sands of Karbala, in the badlands of North Philadelphia, in the streets of Salt Lake City, Fadl ibn Abbas, father of heavenly graces, succeeded. Salawat.
Allahumma
Salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Ahsan, Brother Emerald, that was fantastic. Very captivating the way you delivered. Alhamdulillah. Please say loud salawat for Emerald's well-being. Allah.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Ahsantum, ahsantum. Barakallah.
And thank you very much. It's we know it's already late for you. It's already close to midnight. So I actually passed midnight. So thank you very much for staying up.
Thank you for the opportunity. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Anyone else wants to recite anything? So again, brothers and sisters, inshallah, we will have our official program concludes at this time, and inshallah tomorrow again we will start at 8:50 with the Q&A session, followed by the speech at 9:15, and inshallah at 9:45 we will do the Lutmiya, inshallah. And I would highly encourage others as well, whosoever wants to do Lutmiya, Noha, please bring your Lutnia and Noha. It can be in any language. Definitely English is preferred, but it can be in any language. So please, whatever you can, to give the Pursa, to offer your condolences to Bibi Fatima Zahra alayhi salam. With that, Brother Hassan, do you have anything?
Well, I think what we need to do, inshallah, let's do Ziyarat Waris, inshallah. What do you think, Hajjara?
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's a good idea. So every night, I think we should do it. So let's do that. So Brother Ghulam, he says he has a poem. Oh, so he wants to do probably future, tomorrow or day after tomorrow. Okay, sounds good. So Brother Hassan, please go ahead.
Okay, inshallah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد السلام عليك يا وارث آدم صفة الله السلام عليك يا وارث نوح النبي الله السلام عليك يا وارث عيسى روح الله السلام عليك يا وارث إبراهيم خليل الله السلام عليك يا وارث موسى كليم الله السلام عليك يا وارث محمد حبيب الله السلام عليك يا وارث أمير المؤمنين عليه السلام السلام عليك يا ابن محمد المصطفى السلام عليك يا ابن علي المرتضى السلام عليك يا ابن فاطمة الزهراء السلام عليك يا ابن خديجة الكبرى السلام عليك يا صار الله وابن صاره والوتر الموتور أشهد أنك أشهد أنك قد أقمت الصلاة وآتيت الزكاة وأمرت بالمعروف ونهيت عن المنكر وأطعت الله ورسوله حتى أتاك اليقين فلعن الله أمة قتلك ولعن الله أمة ظلمك ولعن الله أمة سمعت بذلك فرضيت به يا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله أشهد أنك كنت نورا في الأصلاب الشامخة والأرحام المطهرة لم تنجسك الجاهلية فانجاسها ولم تلبسك من متلهمات ثيابها وأشهد أنك من دائم الدين وأركان المؤمنين وأشهد أنك الإمام البر التقي الرضي الزكي الهادي المهدي وأشهد أن الأئمة من بلدك كلمة التقوى وأعلام الهدى والغربة الوثقى والحجة على أهل الدنيا واشهد الله وملائكته وأنبياءه ورسله أني بكم مؤمن وبيا بكم موقن بشرائع ديني وخواتيم عملي وقلبي لقلبكم سلم وأمري لأمركم متبع صلوات الله عليكم وعلى أرواحكم وعلى أجسادكم وعلى أجسامكم وعلى شاهدكم وعلى غائبكم وعلى ظاهركم وعلى باطنكم بابي أنت وأمي يا ابن رسول الله بابي أنت وأمي يا أبا عبد الله لقد أدمت الرزية وجلت المصيبة بك علينا وعلى جميع أهل السماوات والأرض فلعن الله أمة نسرجت والجمعت وتهيت لقتالك يا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله قصدت حرمك وأتيت إلى مشهدك أسأل الله بالشأن الذي لك عنده وبالمحل الذي لك لدي أن يصلي على محمد وآل محمد وأن يجعلني معكم في الدنيا والآخرة. اللهم السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. For the soul of all the mu'mineen and mu'minat, and especially all the shuhada and all those loved ones who passed away near and far, especially those people who are calamity going on in Yemen, in Afghanistan, in Pakistan, in Kashmir, in Syria, in Iraq, and all over Muslim country, and especially in this country, and especially Alal Khusus, our brothers who passed away far and near, Haj Abbas and Agha Nazari, and then Brother Mustafa's mother, Rahmallah Mangara Surah Al-Fatiha, Masbugatan bis-Salat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Bismillah.
صلى على محمد وآل محمد. أحسنت أحسنت.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. بسم الله.
Ahsant. So inshallah, we'll see you all, inshallah, tomorrow at 8:50.
إن شاء الله. جزاك الله خير.
Iman Allah.